Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on then, number 4, reading of the minutes of our last annual meeting.
Mr. Rizzo, I would like to disperse the reading of the minutes of the last meeting. I'll second that.
I've got a first from Mr. Colby, a second from Mr. Perko to disperse the reading of the last year's minutes. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next would be the presentation of the budget. Mrs. Lau.
Let's see if we can get technology working before I try to do a presentation. I'm stuck here because I can't go over, so I'll stand here if that's okay for anything. I just want to start out by providing you with a little background information about what the controlling mechanism is for our budgets. Revenue limits were implemented in 1993 to control the amount of money schools can receive in tax dollars, and that's a combination of state aid and local property tax. The revenue limit calculation uses the previous year's revenue amount as a starting point and typically provides a per pupil adjustment amount for inflation. The per pupil adjustment amount is increased or decreased based on state legislation, and until recently, those adjustments were annually between $190 and $275. For the 14-15 year, that adjustment amount is $75. Legislation has allowed 1% increase for inflation, whereas the consumer price index has been increasing at a rate of 1.5% to over 3%. Since Act 10 has been implemented. This has required this school district to make some significant budget reduction decisions to stay within our projected revenues. This graph just is a visual of the per pupil adjustments since the inception of revenue limits. Enrollment plays a key part in our revenue limit computation. We utilize a student head count, and that is the number of students within our districts, within our seats being educated by Chilton. We utilize that information and we make adjustments for open enrollment. Those students that are from neighboring districts that attend here, we have to subtract out. Students that are part of the Calumet County Disability Education Board program, special education students, those need to be subtracted out. And then we add in students from Chilton who are attending other districts, we add them in, and then we convert them to a full-time equivalency. That number is utilized to, in our revenue limits, to establish the amount of aid that we receive as a district. This graph shows enrollments for the past 5 years and the projection for the next 5 years. This information was provided by Information Management Systems, and it's obviously indicating a declining enrollment for our district. The trend seems to be a bit aggressive in its conservatism. The actual pupil counts is currently in process, and the projections are updated on an annual basis. The demographics of the school district can have a strong impact on how we allocate our funds as it pertains to meeting the needs of the district and its building goals. As you can see, we have about a little over 30% population of free and reduced student. This has been increasing for our district quite a bit for the last 10 years or so. And so it's been playing a pretty significant part of how we delegate some of our dollars. Our staffing is adjusted annually based upon the needs of our students. The revenues for all of the funds, you'll see that the general fund revenue increase, there's a general revenue increase. That is due to the fact that we are reducing our capital projects fund levy for 1 year only to allow us a little more flexibility, to provide us a little more revenue under our general operations fund. The debt service increase is due to our payment structure for those debts. Again, or a portion of their referendum debt is callable for the 2015 year, and we are currently working with Robert W. Baird on possible refinancing of that debt to achieve some greater savings. Again, the capital projects fund was decreased this year, and at this point, it's planned for 1 year only. And then the trust fund reduction in revenue is due to a generous donation we received last year. The instructional funds are projected to be about $11.7 million. This is about a $190,000 increase from last year. Of the revenues, about $10 million is controlled by the revenue limits. The additional $1.6 million comes from mainly grants and aids, and then of course student fees and interest income. The local tax levy is dependent upon the amount of equalization aid that we will receive, and we will not get that certified until October 15th. And for the budget, for the preliminary budget, we utilize the July 1 estimates for equalized values. The state and local dollars of income make up about 90% of the district's operational revenues, and of that, 60% comes from state dollars. The general fund expenditures are anticipated to increase mainly due to salary increases, and the capital projects fund increase is based on our current 5-year capital improvements plan. The instructional fund expenditures are projected to increase about 0.5%, so 11.7 million. The instruction budget reflects the retirement of staff, reduction of special education teacher, health insurance restructure, a downward adjustment of department budgets, as well as reduction of staff development. And salaries and benefits represents about 76% of the instructional fund expenditures, with an additional 2% of purchase services from CESA 7 for special education services. Second largest expense after salaries and benefits are purchase services, which consists mainly of utilities, transportation services, and payments to other schools for services. What's on here as the TCEC, that's the total current education cost. That is comprised of instructional and support expenses. The next column, which is the TEC, which is total education costs, adds transportation, debt payments, and capital project expenses. And the last column, TDC, is total district costs, which adds food service and community fund expenses. This information ties costs to our performance. Chilton continues to educate students, and that's the TCEC column, at a cost below the state average, while outperforming the state by 10 to 15% percentage points on the WKCE scores, on WKCE testing. It is only due to our brick and mortar expenses that our spending becomes higher than the state average. The total tax levy being presented is $5,391,369. This is a 1.71% increase over last year. The tax levy rate is based on a 0% increase in our property values. The trend has been to go down, so we're optimistic with a 0. The gross tax levy rate is $11.46 per thousand. This is a 1.69% increase from last year. And this tax levy rate does not include school tax levy credit, which is applied on your municipality bills, tax bills. This information isn't available to us until December, so I can't provide you with that information as to what we're going to receive. The debt service tax levy is anticipated to increase $260,000, and that's due to our payment plan of our debt. The property tax by fund is presented for the community's approval. The levy will be finalized and certified by the board at the October 27th board meeting. After all of the final pieces of the revenue limit computation are attained, which would be the pupil counts, the equalized values in early October, and then the certified equalization aid that we received on October 15th. This graph indicates that 58% or $6.65 of the mill rate will go towards funding general operations. 39% or $4.50 will go toward the payment of debt for the high school building and the pool. And the remaining 3% or 31 cents will go toward maintenance and community funds. We are projecting a slight mill increase based on the variables, which obviously is the 0% increase in equalized values. If equalized values should increase, the mill rate will go down. As explained in the budget report, between the decrease in state support and the recent decline in equalized values, the property tax for homeowners has been increasing, though for the 14-15 year, we are projecting the rate to stay about the same, a slight increase. This graph shows the distribution of equalized values within the district. The city of Chilton is our largest supporter, holding about 40% of the district's property value. These two graphs show the history of the district's property values over the past 10 years. As you can see, from 2005 to 2008, the district saw some steep increases in property values, but that trend has ended, and we are now seeing decreases or less than 1.5% increase, as indicated in the bottom graph. In the past 10 years, the district has refinanced twice, the first in 2005, estimating a savings over an 8-year period of $316,000. The second in 2010, estimated a savings over 9 years of $675,000. These savings and reduced tax of almost $1 million are due to the administration, finance committee, and board's commitment to being fiscally responsible and to find taxpayer savings in every avenue. In 2012-13, the board utilized fund balance to pay in full the non-referendum debt early as an additional tax savings measure.
So, Mrs. Law?
Yes,
2022, if I'm reading right, that's when the debt will be paid?
that will be our last debt payment for the two bonds, the two referendum bonds that we still have open. The final adjustments that need to occur, the certification of the equalized values will be received in early October. The DPI will certify our equalization aid amount by October 15th. The revenue limit calculation needs to be recomputed based on enrollment and the equalized values and the aid. And then the local tax levy will be recalculated based on the revenue limit calculation. Presentation of the budget adjustments for board approval and setting of the final tax levy will occur at the October 27th board meeting. Any questions?
Any questions from Mrs. Hall? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hall. Next would be our superintendent, Dr. Martin.
Some comments that I would like to add regarding this budget and moving forward as the district continues to look at its fiscal responsibilities. First of all, I want to thank Mrs. Lau, who has direct responsibility for the development of the budget. Thank you. I want to thank the administrative team, who's been very helpful in its development, specifically the Finance Committee, Mr. Kreider and Mr. Brickle, who work on this tirelessly throughout the year. The entire Chilton Board of Education, who also are dedicated to meeting the needs of our school district and our taxpayers. To Chilton staff members who are ultimately responsible for the implementation of these budgets, and to the Chilton community who provide financial support for us, but also show a genuine interest and concern in the fiscal health of this school district, which could really be exemplified by the amount of attendance that Mrs. Lau and I had at a number of sessions that were held almost throughout the last school year on the tabletop exercise called Investing in Wisconsin Public Schools. Consistently for over probably a 7 to 8 month period, we had a number of community members come to meetings in this room to learn more about school finance and how schools, Chilton in particular, finance their public education. But I'd also like to take an opportunity to provide additional thanks to the many individuals and the community organizations that support our schools on an ongoing basis. I'm going to mention a few here tonight. I'm sure I'll probably miss some, so I apologize ahead of time. But I think that it bears mention the number of groups that throughout the school year continually support our schools through their generous donations. Groups such as the PTA, the Optimist Club, the ACs, the Tiger Athletic Club, the Wrestling Club, the Chilton Aquatics Club, the Friends of the Angler Center, the FFA Alumni Organization, the Lions Club, and through generous grants, the Chilton Community Foundation, and the Chilton Booster Club. It came to my attention just recently in reading minutes from the Chilton Booster Club that since 2009, they alone, as a booster organization, have donated over $100,000 to the school district to help support co-curricular programming. We could not be in the position that we are and offering the opportunities that we have to students today without their generous donation, as well as the many generous donations that we have from other organizations and individuals throughout our community. We have tremendous community support here. But it's our obligation as an administrative team and as a board to look ahead to the following school year, to 2015-16. And you might say, why, Dr. Martin? We're barely getting this budget in the bank, so to speak. Why are we looking ahead? Because those projections are so far out, they cannot possibly be accurate. And that's true. The farther out that you begin to plan, the larger the rocks that you're dealing with. And we know that our projections are not with a great deal of precision or accuracy. However, if we don't begin to plan now, we diminish opportunities for ongoing important discussions and important decisions that have to happen relative to the programming that's offered in this school district. We will diminish options and choices for the best plan moving forward if we don't begin discussions now about the future. Mrs. Law mentioned that she utilizes the Baird forecast model. We have continually relied upon this model for budget planning. She has started to look at this for the 2015 school year and beyond. And the budget deficits that we are looking at in the future are significant. Because they are so large in scope, I am hesitant to mention them tonight, but that information will be forthcoming. I've often said, to know where we're going, we need to know where we've been. And you've heard Mrs. Lau talk about budget reductions that we have entertained in the past. But more specifically, what's been done. Over the past 7 years of my administration, and starting prior to that, in the last few years of my predecessor's administration, we have cut over $1 million in sustained operating budget costs out of the district budget. Where has that come from? What have we done specifically? We've had wage freezes for all employees. These have been voluntary. 2 employee groups have done so twice. We have implemented furlough days for some of our employees that are still being implemented today. We have required greater contributions by all employees to their employee benefits, and in many instances have capped benefits to both teacher and administrative contracts. We have had reductions in staff. We have utilized the use of fund balance for the last several years. We have increased user fees to parents and students. We have reduced bus routes. We have reduced supply budgets. We have reduced staff development opportunities. And as you have seen tonight, we have created a decrease in our general funds project for the upcoming school year. You've also heard tonight that in addition to these sustained cuts, the district has done over $1 million in debt refinance in order to save costs to our taxpayers. So the question remains, what's next, and where do we go from here? How do we begin to look at the deficits that are looming ahead of us? Certainly, one could make the case that at the state level, we need to continue to inform our legislators of the need to financially support Wisconsin Public Schools. You have seen the drop in aid that we have experienced as a school district. The revenue caps have been in place since 1993 with the intent of controlling spending and limiting tax increases. That's 21 years of revenue limits. Imagine you capping your expenditures for the past 21 years. Have you not seen increases in fuel costs and transportation? Have you not seen increases in healthcare costs? Have you not seen increases in heating and cooling costs, to name a few? As a superintendent of the Chilton School District, and I think I am comfortable in saying, speaking on behalf of the entire administrative team here, we are open to new ideas for continuing to meet the challenges of balancing our budgets as we move forward. And we are open to those ideas from our community and from our staff. We are open. However, the topic that no one wants to discuss, and that none of us, and that we have collectively done our best to avoid in this community, is an operational referendum. It is understandable that no one wants to see an increase in taxes. It is understandable that given the recession period that we have moved through as a community and as a state and as a nation, no one wants to move in this direction. But interestingly enough, no one also wants to see a decrease in services, and no one wants to see a decrease in student opportunities that we are able to provide children in Chilton either. Therefore, choices have to be made, and decisions must be carefully weighed. I believe we are now at the point where continuing reductions will have to directly impact the academic and the co-curricular programming for Chilton students. Back in 2013, I delivered, at the request of the board, a report called Defining a Quality Education in the School District of Chilton. And in this report, I outlined what I believe we need in order to provide a quality education to our students, both in academic programming and in co-curricular programming as well. We also outlined in this report a number of goals that we as a district were going to strive toward in order to achieve this program. This report was updated to the board and the community in 2014 as well. The lofty goals that are detailed in these plans will not be sustainable with continuing reductions to our programming. Therefore, we have tough choices and hard decisions ahead of us. Tonight, you're going to hear a report from Mr. Brightlow on eliminating the potential to eliminate block scheduling at Chilton High School versus an 8-period day, and what potential cost savings that might bring us as a district. In October, I will be providing a report to the board on proposals for continuing budget reductions moving forward into the 2015-16 school year. There has been some discussions around this board table and out and about in the community about a potential referendum. But those conversations have also focused on the idea that without a focused intent of that referendum, it would not have a chance for passage in this community. For example, we have seen in other communities referendums that have focused on technology and referendums that have focused on building maintenance. However, in the Chilton Public Schools, over the last at least 7 years of my tenure, and I know prior to that, we have not let these areas of our budget lapse. Our buildings are not in disrepair. Our technology is not falling apart around us. Could we sustain improvements in these areas? Absolutely. But they are not in such disrepair that I believe that we have enough to request a referendum just for these items alone. Quite frankly, we need an operational booster club. We need a golf outing to support academic programming. I know that that sounds ridiculous and that's not likely to happen. But I also know that this school district is an important driver and contributor to the economic stability of this community. Very recently, I attended a meeting at City Hall with a number of folks who are thinking about visioning and goals for this community. And a member of KT spoke and said, if people are coming to this community that they hire, that have children, they will buy a home here because of the school district here and because of our success academically and in our co-curricular programming. If they have children, it is likely they will buy a home and settle in this community because of this school district. Before we move forward with continued cuts to our programming, before, quite frankly, we begin to dismantle what I believe is a strong and thriving educational system, I believe we need to let the voters of this community decide through a referendum if that is what they truly want to see happen. Therefore, absent of other revenue saving or revenue generating ideas, it is my recommendation that the Chilton Board of Education approve and plan for an operational referendum to be placed on the spring ballot for the balance of the 2015 school year budget. I'd like to end with a quote that I had in a report back in probably 2010 or 2011. And it was a presentation that I made out and about in the community. It was called The School District of Chilton, Mapping a Course for Academic Success. And the quote goes like this. The title of the slide is, The Cavalry Isn't Coming. Public schools reflect the values of their community, and ultimately, the real change that schools need will not come from the state, and it will not come from the federal government, but from the people within the community who are committed to providing a quality education for their students. And I believe that that time is now for the Chilton community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
That's a good point, that's a good thought. Any questions related to my comments, any comments that you'd like to make? I'm always open, so if they come to you when you're out in the parking lot, an hour later, you can always email or call. Thank you for your kind attention.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Martin. Okay, moving on with the annual meeting then, we'll go to number 7, Resolution A. Be it resolved by the electors of the School District of Chilton that pursuant to section 120.10, parenthesis 8 of the Wisconsin statute, a tax amount of $3,133,290 be levied for the 2014-15 year for the purpose of the operation of the schools of the school district. That requires a motion.
Second.
Got a first from Mr. Bailey and a second from Mr. Kreider. Any questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, Resolution B, be it resolved by the electors of the School District of Chilton that pursuant to Section 120.10, parentheses 10 of the Wisconsin statutes, a tax in the amount of $2,116,910 be levied for the 2014-15 year for the purpose of paying all current bonded indebtedness for capital expenditures.
So moved.
Got a first from Mr. Kreider. Second from Mr. Colby. Any discussion? All in favor then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to number 9, Resolution C. Be it resolved by the electors of the School District of Chilton that pursuant to Section 120.10, parentheses 10M of the Wisconsin statutes, a tax in the amount of $5,000 be levied for the 2014-15 year for the purpose of financing all current and future capital expenditures related to buildings and sites.
So moved.
Mr. Colby?
I'll second that. This is not just a board meeting,
Oh, yeah,
anybody that's an elector can make these motions.
it's just the board members don't have to, anybody else here can be making these motions.
If they're a resident of our
If they're residents.
So I've got a first from Mr. Colby and a second from Mr. Brickle. Any further discussion, questions? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 10, Resolution D. Be it resolved by the electors of the School District of Chilton that pursuant to Section 120.13, parentheses 19 of the Wisconsin statute, the tax in the amount of $141,169 be levied for the 2014-15 year for the purpose of financing community use of school facilities, providing residents with an activity calendar, and middle school athletic and police school liaison programs.
So moved. I'll second.
We have first from Mr. Apple and a second from Mr. Brickle. Any discussion or questions? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution E is authorized to establish salaries for school board members. Right now, the salary is $1,000 a year.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we keep that salary the same at Roman Chilton.
Second.
Mr. Brady, you second?
Yeah.
I've got a first from Mr. Roman and a second from Mr. Brightwell to keep the salary for the board members at $1,000. Any question or discussion on the resolution? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution F is to authorize authorization to provide reimbursement of expense for school board members. And this would be like when we go to convention or meetings, is to reimburse board members.
So moved.
Second.
Got first from Dr. Martin, and a second from Mr. Bailey. Any questions or discussion on Resolution F? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? motion carries. Resolution G, authorization to retain legal counsel.
So moved.
Second.
First from Mr. Brickle and second from Mr. Kreider. On resolution G, any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution H, authorization for the school board to purchase, operate, and maintain transportation vehicles and to purchase liability insurance for such vehicles and to finance contracts for the use and services of such vehicles.
So moved.
I'll second.
Got a first from Dr. Martin, a second from Mr. Apple. On resolution H, any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor then signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution I is authorization for the school board to furnish a school nutrition program.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah.
Got a first from Mr. Kreider, a second from Mr. Brightwell. On resolution I, any questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution J, authorization for the school board to furnish textbooks.
I make a motion to approve resolution J.
I'll second.
Where'd that first come from?
Right,
Oh,
right,
sorry.
Brand tool.
Greater children.
You want to go up there and have an opportunity? I'll over that.
Got a first from Mr. Brightwell, a second from Mr. Colby. On resolution J, any questions or discussion? If not, then let signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution K, to authorize the school board to make temporary loans for current operation according to statutory requirements.
So moved.
Second
Got a first from Mr. Brickle and a second from Mr. Kreider. On resolution K, any questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution L, to authorize the Board of Education to set the date of the 2015 annual meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board be given authorization to set the date for the annual meeting as is appropriate for the board schedule.
I'll second.
Got a first from Dr. Martin, a second from Mr. Colby to authorize the Board of Education to set the date for the annual meeting. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor then signifies by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
First from Mr. Apple and second from Mr. Bailey to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we will take a 5-minute